Caleb stared at the page for hours. The ink was fresh, the words typed with force. He could tell by the deep impressions on the paper. But no typewriter existed in the house. He had searched every corner, every drawer, even beneath the floorboards in a strange fit of desperation, and still, nothing. The attic door remained locked, silent as stone. Its keyhole looked ancient, almost carved by hand, and the wood surrounding it felt colder than the rest of the hallway. It was as if the door wasn't part of the house, but something older, something separate, waiting. That afternoon, he walked into the small village center. Wren Hollow wasn't much, just a grocer, a post office, and an old inn that looked abandoned despite the open sign on the door. He asked the man at the counter in the grocer's about the house. The man's face went pale. "You're staying there?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Yes, just arrived yesterday." A long silence. The man's hands trembled slightly as he bagged some bread. "I wouldn't stay long, if I were you." "No one who settles there finishes what they came for." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" The man only shook his head. Moon's almost full again. Back at the house, night fell fast. Caleb lit the fireplace, made tea, and tried to write, but his fingers stayed frozen on the keyboard, blank. Midnight crept in, and then it returned. Clack, clack, clack. The sound of the typewriter. Louder this time. Each keystroke echoed down from above, like hammer blows on stone. He stepped into the hallway. The attic door loomed at the end, shadows swirling around it unnaturally, like the darkness was thicker there. Another page had been slipped under the door. He picked it up with shaking hands. The page described him walking down the hall, picking up the paper, and returning to his room in silence, too afraid to look behind him. His heart pounded. He glanced over his shoulder. Nothing, only the flickering light. Back in his room, he locked the door and placed the new page beside the first. The words at the bottom made his stomach knot. "You've started the story. Now you must finish it." Then, as he stared at the lines, he noticed a reflection in the window, someone standing behind him. He turned. Empty room, just the soft sound of the wind, and the faint scent of ink. The next morning, Caleb awoke to find his door unlocked. He was sure he had bolted it the night before. His laptop was still open, but its screen had gone black. A soft breeze drifted in through the window, though he had closed it before bed, and on the floor near the desk, another page. He hesitated before picking it up. This one was different, not a narrative. It was a dialogue. "Why are you here? To finish my story?" "No, you came to become part of mine." The paper smelled like mildew and ink. Caleb dropped it, suddenly nauseated. Something was wrong with this house, deeply, invisibly wrong. He tried calling his editor. No signal. His phone showed full bars yesterday. Now it blinked no service. The internet was out too. The router lights were dead. Panic stirred beneath the surface, but he shoved it down. He couldn't afford paranoia. He was a rational man, a writer. There had to be a logical explanation, but logic failed that night. The sound returned earlier, this time just past 11. Clack, clack, clack. He refused to go to the attic. Instead, he wore headphones and turned on white noise, but the typing grew louder, as if the source moved closer. He pulled off the headphones. Clack, 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 from just outside his door. He held his breath. A pause, then a knock, soft, precise. He didn't move, didn't breathe. The knock came again, 3 times, then silence. He didn't sleep, just waited for the sunrise with eyes wide open. When morning came, the door was open again, and a page lay at his feet. This one said, "It's rude not to answer when I knock, but I'm patient. We have all night." He burned the page in the fireplace, but the next one still appeared. The days blurred. Sleep came in fragments, stolen between bursts of paranoia. Caleb stopped trying to write. The pages wrote themselves. Nah always typed, always waiting. Sometimes on his desk, sometimes slipped beneath the bathroom door, once tucked between his bed sheets. Each one knew more about him, things he had never told anyone, regrets, childhood nightmares. A moment when he nearly stepped off a rooftop in college, something even he had forgotten. The house was not haunted in the traditional sense. It wasn't a place of ghosts, but of memory, reshaped and rewritten. Something invisible lived in the walls, feeding not on fear, but on thought. And Caleb had brought an overactive mind. That night, he snapped. He grabbed a hammer from the shed and approached the attic door. The lock looked old, but firm. He struck it hard once, twice, 3 times, till the metal bent and cracked. With one final blow, it gave way. The door creaked open. Darkness swallowed the space beyond. The air changed. He stepped inside. Dust floated like ash in the beam of his flashlight. The floorboards moaned beneath his feet, and in the center of the room, a typewriter. It stood alone on a small wooden desk, black, gleaming, untouched by time. A single sheet of paper was rolled into it. He approached slowly. Typed words waited on the page. Now we write together. His fingers moved on their own. Against his will, they hovered over the keys. He screamed and pulled back, but the keys clacked anyway. One by one, no hands, just motion. Words appeared. You're the story now, Caleb. He turned to flee and saw her, a woman in the corner of the attic, pale, eyes hollow, skin paper thin. She whispered without lips moving. I stayed too long, then vanished. Caleb stumbled backward down the attic stairs, falling hard onto the hallway floor. His breath came in ragged gasps, mind racing, body trembling. The attic door slammed shut behind him on its own. He didn't dare look back. He packed that night, threw clothes into a bag, slammed his laptop shut, didn't even take the charger. He ran outside into the night air, stars buried behind thick clouds. The gravel crunched beneath his shoes as he approached his car, but the door was already open, and on the driver's seat, another page. This one was different. It had no typing, just a title, the final chapter. He left the car, ran into the woods. Branches tore at his skin. The wind howled like voices, familiar voices, old friends, lost family. He heard his mother's laugh, his brother calling from childhood, but they were dead, long gone. The woods ended too soon. He emerged back at the house. Impossible. He ran again, opposite direction, through the dark. Same result? Back to the porch, the door open wide, the typewriter waiting inside. He had never left. This house wasn't haunted, it was alive, and he was caught in its story written into its bones. By morning, the town of Wren Hollow stood quiet again. No one saw Caleb leave. No one saw him return. But if you visit the Hollow House now, if you walk up the creaking steps and peer through the dusty window, you might see a man at a desk, typing. His fingers move even when he sleeps. And some nights, when the moon is high and the wind is right, you can hear the sound of the typewriter echoing down the hill. Still writing, still hungry.